Welcome to the Sunday Gardener, and it's a beautiful sunny afternoon in early April. Today we're going to look at planting onions and garlic. I've got here some onions ready for planting, red and white onions. You can grow them from seed, but to be honest, if you're a bit short of time, it's just as easy to plant them from these sets, and it's not that much more expensive. Always buy garlic from a proprietary garden centre or online supplier. This is an Isle of Wight variety, which I've grown before. It's very good. I'm planting in April. You can plant in autumn if you've got a relatively good, well-drained soil. This is quite a wet area and the soil tends to get very heavy over winter, so they have a tendency to rot. So I always plant in the spring, but you can plant in the autumn. Before planting, it's quite good to put a bit of onion and bulb fertiliser onto the soil, just a handful per square metre, and sprinkle it in as I have done here. Rake it in well so that it's well into the soil. Do it all over the area where you're going to plant your onions and garlic. You can also plant shallots at this time of year. The only member of the onion family that you don't want to plant yet is probably your leeks. Now these are leeks that I seeded earlier on in the year, and you can see they actually need separating out and planting on a bit. Not got round to it yet, but they're still quite tiny. So these need to grow on in individual modules probably until about June, when they've got a little bit sturdier and they've got a good stem on them, and then I'll be planting those out as well. So for now, April, it's the onions and garlic. Now, planting in the veg plot, I really do try to make it look attractive, and one of the things I quite like to do is to plant a row of white onions and then a row of red onions. The other thing is to try and get the rows straight and to get the onions planted at an even width, both to give them space to grow and because they look a lot neater. I use a straight edge. So we line it up. And this dibber is graded with marks on it, and that also helps to get the onions a good distance apart so they're regularly spaced. So what you need to do, using it to space them, is make a hole, because you're planting the onions so that the tip of it is just on the soil surface. Don't be tempted to push it in, because what happens when the bulb grows is often it gets pushed out. So using the spacer, make your first hole. It's important to make a proper hole, and then put the onion in it so that the tip is just on the surface of the soil. And then using your spacer from the onion, make the next hole, making sure that you've got them lined up on the straight edge to keep the line straight. Pop the onion in so it's just resting on the surface, and then the same here. Always pick the best bulbs out. There's always too many onion sets unless you want an onion farm, so always pick the very best ones out, smoothing them up to the edge. Okay, so then you can plant the same way all the way along, white row, red row, whatever pattern you want to make. And afterwards, as always, water in well, because anything that's planted needs to be watered well. Now with the garlic, you need to break up the bulbs. Sometimes, as this one is, can be a bit tough to break into, because I don't want to bruise the bulbs, just want to break them off from the root. When planting onions and garlic, it's important to plant them the right way up. It's a bit easy to see on this one because it's got a shoot, but they don't always have shoots on them. What you need to look for is this, which is the hairy end. That's the root end, that goes downwards. Same with the garlic, that's the root end, and the pointy end goes upwards. Once you've broken the garlic bulb open, pick out the best bulbs and discard any which are very small, such as this one here. Probably won't come to so much, but pick out the very best ones. Both onions and garlic are planted in much the same way. Make sure you've got the bulb the right way up. Make a hole just below the surface and cover it up. Both onions and garlic will keep really well over the winter. You can be eating your own onions and garlic well into the new year, and it's very nice in winter when all the salad crops and the beans are finished to still have the pleasure of eating your own red onions in salads and cooking with garlic. So they're a really rewarding crop to grow and very easy. All they need is to be planted in a sunny position, and in a few months' time you'll have some splendid onion and garlic. So here we are, the onion's been planted, and the thing to see is how they sit just below the surface. You don't plant them deeply. Planted 2 rows of white, 2 rows of red. Then I'm going to fill them in and then water them. So all you need to do is just to cover up each onion gently. And work your way across the row. Now, one of the things about onions where you can snip off the very tips to conceal them from the birds, but it is the case that sometimes the birds come along, particularly the pigeons, and hook them out. So it's good that you always get a lot of bulbs in a bulb set pack, because you have a few spares to put in the holes for the ones that the pigeons steal. So the onions are all planted now. If you don't want the pigeons to have any, you can always net them, but to be honest, I think the birds are entitled to a few, so I just keep some spares. And the same when you're planting anything. The last job of the day is to water well. And of course, should you plant in a dry spell, you may need to carry on watering, but dry spells are not very common, so usually nature will do it for you after you've planted. And we look forward to a really good crop in the summer.